Podcast Network.
Did you ever wonder where all the women in your history books were? So did we, and you were in the right place. Welcome to Whining About Herstory, the women's history podcast where two longtime gal pals pair fine wine with fine lady. Emily.
I'm Kelley.
And thank you so much for listening today.
I totally thought you said gal pals, and I was like, did you just call us like a weird version of a cow?
Here's the thing. I might have done that because I hesitated on the word and then my mouth did a weird thing. I was like,
oh, that's funny.
I copped out at the last minute.
We're glad you're joining us today.
I've been doing weird stuttering and mispronunciations at work all the time. I try to say editor and I go,
It's like that one day that I couldn't say whatever word, like physicist or whatever.
Astronomy.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Astronomical.
That's what
astronomical.
Astronomical. Yeah. It's this wine's actually hitting me pretty hard.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, so Kelley, tell us what we're drinking today.
Okay. We are drinking a wine by Innocent Bystander. It's Moscato. And it doesn't have any description on the back of it.
It's got a really pretty label, though, because it's like a black silhouette with purple and gray watercolor splash across it.
Victoria 2014, so I'm assuming that's when it was made.
It was made by Victoria.
No, Australia.
Oh.
Victoria, Australia.
It was made by Victoria in Victoria, Australia in 2014. You go, Victoria.
Right. And like I said, it doesn't have a description, but it's almost... we're not sure if it's apricot-y, but it's something along those lines where it's really strong up front, and then it really just mellows out into a really nice fruit flavor.
Yeah, it's like that friend who comes up and they're like, oh my God, let me tell you about everything. And then they chill out and they're like, okay, now you tell me about my day. Yeah. I got here and I was like, Kelley, I need to fucking tell you about my week. You will not believe it.
Yeah.
And then I got all my crazy out and I was like, oh, tell me about your week because I love you and I'm interested in your life. But I just needed to get this shit out.
Yeah. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's very
I'm really
orange.
liking it.
I thought it was going to be more orange citrusy, so I was really hesitant to drink it. I was like,
yeah, because it's kind of like
a suck.
Orange rosé-y color.
Yeah.
That's really good. I would recommend it.
Yeah, for sure. So what are we cheersing to today, lovely lady?
Spring.
Fuck
I think we've
spring.
cheersed to that before, but now it's legitimately spring. It's super nice outside right now.
Let's cheers to the fact that we were supposed to get snow on Wednesday, and it just rained.
Yeah, and Duluth got 10 inches, so ha-ha!
Fuck you, Duluth! Cheers!
Clink. Emily forgot, so I did it for her.
I just want this in my mouth so bad.
It's real good.
By the way, Duluth, you're a lovely place.
Yeah, no, I actually really like visiting Duluth, but you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so today for Say My Name, I'm going to briefly speak on Noriko Osumi. Yeah. You have no idea who that is.
No, but I love the name.
I know, right? Dr. Osumi is a neuroscientist in Japan at the Tohoku University. She researches how brain cells are related to the development of disorders. I just spit all over my microphone.
The mic doesn't mind. The mic's into it.
She has also been instrumental in researching and gaining more information about PAX6. PAX6 with an X. PAX6 is a gene that belongs to the family of genes critical in the formation of tissues and organs in embryonic development. PAX6 is a key regulatory gene of eye and brain development, specifically. So she's researching, what comes along with PAX6 being different. So that's pretty interesting.
That's cool.
Modern day women.
Yeah. Say their name, man.
Woo woo. So good on you, Noriko Ozumi.
Dr. Noriko
Ozumi. That's true. I know.
I didn't go to med school for 8 years just to be called Noriko.
Yeah, right?
Fucking get it
add
right.
Add that title. Okay. All right. Moving on to our historical ladies.
Yeah, Kelley, who are you covering today?
I am covering, I'm going to say this, Camille Claudel.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a sexy name.
I know.
You go,
I actually
Camille.
really like Camille. Like, that's, yeah.
Is it Camille or Camille?
Camille.
Okay. I said it wrong. Camille.
What are you doing? Like, are you like chlamydia? Camille?
Apparently. I told you I've got this weird, like, speech thing.
I think it's the wine.
I think I might have a latent, like, speech impediment. Because do you ever get that where you're like, your mouth gets in the way of your words?
Only when I'm drinking.
Okay. Well,
She's just
I do
drunk
it
all the time.
All the time. I mean, it might make my life a little easier if I was just drunk all the
right?
time.
You just wouldn't give a shit.
Oh, you're mad at me? Gulp, gulp. I'm fine with that. Let's do this.
Right. All right. So, I almost like choked on that word.
See? It's hard.
Camille
Words are hard.
Claudel was born in Ferré-un-Tardonnes, Essine, in northern France.
Buckle up, guys.
Yeah.
It's a French gal.
The second child of a family of farmers and gentry. Her father, Louis Prosper Claudel, dealt in mortgages and bank transactions. Her mother, the former Louise Anthonese Cecile Serveau. Louise Anthonese is a hyphenated name.
Okay.
And it's Athanai with 2 dots. S-E. So I was like, Anthonese.
Everyone in France hates us right now.
Hey, you can come and teach me how to pronounce French words. I'm okay with that.
France, email us.
So her mother came from a Champagne family of Catholic farmers and priests. The family moved to Villeneuve-sur-Ferre while Camille was still a baby. Her younger brother, Paul Claudel, was born there in 1868. They then moved to Bar-le-Duc in 1870, Nogent-sur-Seine in 1876, and Wassy-sur-Blaise in 1879, although they continued to spend their summers in Villeneuve-sur-Ferre, and the stark landscape of that region made a deep impression on the children.
So they were moving around a lot?
Oh, yeah.
Like, every day?
Not every day, every, like, few years. That's what it sounds like, because it was 1868, or no, when she was a baby, they moved, so it was probably, I don't know, I didn't say what year she was born. It's not in my notes. But her brother was born in 1868, then they moved 1870, 1876, 1879, and then again in 1881, which I was about to say.
Do you think her dad was just super obnoxious and they kept getting kicked out of, like, villages?
I don't think so, because the next line is, Camille moved with her mother, brother, and younger sister to the Montparnasse area of Paris in 1881, their father remaining behind working to support them.
Because they got sick of him, too.
You're so nice.
I'm putting it all on the father, and I have no basis for my accusations.
Yeah.
Wild speculation.
So Camille was fascinated with stone and soil as a child, and as a young woman, she studied at the Académie Colarossi, one of the few places open to female students. She studied with sculptor Alfred Boucher, because at the time the École des Beaux-Arts barred women from enrolling to study.
Dumb.
Yeah. In 1882, Claudel rented a workshop with other young women, actually, all mostly English, including Jessie Lipscomb. Alfred Boucher had become her mentor, and he also provided inspiration and encouragement to the next generation of sculptors. Camille was depicted by Boucher in Camille Claudel Le Saint, which is like a sculpture of her.
Oh.
I'll put a picture up. And later she sculpted a bust of her mentor. So he did one of her and she did one of him.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, that's kind of nice.
That's like how people swap art online today.
Right? After teaching Camille and the other sculptors for over 3 years, Boucher moved to Florence. Before he left, he asked Auguste Rodin to take over the instruction of his pupils. Rodin and Camille met, and their artistic association and tumultuous and passionate relationship soon began.
Ooh la la.
Right? So Rodin agreed to come and teach his pupils because the support that Boucher had given him during the Bronze Age had forged, or the Age of Bronze, not the Bronze Age.
No, I was like, when was
Completely
that?
different
It was way further
the
back.
Age of Bronze, so like when they were casting a lot of things in bronze.
Mm-hmm.
That had forged a really strong friendship between Rodin and Boucher. And so, yeah, Boucher had no problems entrusting his young pupils to Rodin.
You can say pooples. It's okay.
And Rodin was very interested in Camille's work that Boucher had showed him.
Super interested, I'm sure.
It says, the pathetic realism that Rodin saw in the bust... That's sad that they called it pathetic. So, Rodin saw this realism in the bust of old Helen that Camille had done, and a more conventional handling of Paul at 13, and it moved him deeply.
Cool.
Yep.
So he's into it.
Yeah, he's into her.
He's into a lot of stuff.
Right. The exact nature of the tasks with which Rodin entrusted her remains uncertain, but apparently she was given very difficult pieces to work on, such as hands and feet of figures for monumental statues, or sculptures specifically, notably the sculpture The Gates of Hell.
I just want to say I love that hands and feet have always been the worst part of art.
Right.
Like
hands, feet, and eyes are like my big three.
Like I know artists today where they're like, I fucking hate hands. Like,
or they're like, I can't draw hands.
They refuse to draw hands and feet because they're so fucking hard.
Right.
And I love that. It's just always been that way.
Sculpting like that, man.
Yeah. No, thank you.
So for Camille, obviously, this was a very intensive period of training under Rodin's supervision. She learned about his profiles method and the importance of expression, and in tandem, she pursued her own investigations and accepted her first solo commission and sought recognition as an independent artist at the Salon.
Nice. So she's like
back to salons,
breaking out onto her own.
Yep. Between 1882 and 1889, Camille regularly exhibited busts and portraits of people close to her at the Salon des Artistes Français.
Nice. the little art salon of France.
Well, I think it's the Salon of Artists of France.
Oh.
But we can go with the little.
You know, all language is made up. Right? I can say whatever I want.
Her getting in like these things exhibited was largely thanks to Leon Gouge. Gouge? Gauchez. Who was Rodin's friend and a Belgian art dealer and critic. At this point, several of her works were purchased by French museums throughout the 1890s.
Damn!
Camille's work during this period attests to Rodin's influence, obviously, like they were working very closely.
Yeah, well, and she was learning from him.
Exactly, such as the torso of a standing woman and torso of a crouching woman show how she had grasped the expressive potential of a fragment of the human body, which was something that Rodin was kind of known for.
He's breaking people down into bits and pieces.
Yeah. Crouching Man.
Hidden Tiger.
Yeah, right. Via Rodin's The Thinker bears witness to the influence of the ignudi figures that Michelangelo painted on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel.
Wait. Rodin did The Thinker?
No. He did something called The Crouching Man. It says via Rodin's The Thinker, so I think it's part of his piece, but I don't think it's like The Thinker, because I'm pretty sure that was like Michelangelo or someone.
Because The Thinker was a part of a much larger installation.
Yeah, so
it wasn't,
or maybe he did part of it along with other artists.
The Thinker is such a famous sculpture.
Yeah, why do we not know?
Why do we not know who did this? I might have to look it up.
No, I think I'm going to Google this while I'm talking.
Actually, here, you talk. I will Google it because I also need to put my phone on silent because I just realized I did not do that. I'm being super irresponsible today.
Thanks. Camille did say that she was quoted saying, "I've been making sculptures for 7 years, and I am Monsieur Rodin's pupil," end quote. She, which was in a letter dated the 27th of October, 1889, to the Minister of Public Instruction and Fine Arts.
So I just looked it up super quick. It was him.
Okay.
Yeah, and he has got a magnificent fucking beard. He's got the big beret.
I know. I've seen the pictures.
This dude, he looks so serious, but he's dressed like a fucking cartoon character.
Right.
Like, this can't be real.
Right. So while, Rodin was exerting his kind of influence over her, she also exerted a certain influence over him, especially when she started being recognized as an artist in her own right. Take, for example, a work that Camille did called Young Girl with a Sheaf, which was preceded by Rodin's Galatea, whose sensibility was very similar.
Nice.
So she did hers, and then he did one, and they're like, obviously, she must have influenced him.
Yeah, because this is, like, very similar.
Right. Owing to their stylistic proximity during this period, it is sometimes easy to mistake Camille's skill for that of Rodin's in works on which she collaborated as his assistant, whereas the head of the figure Avarice in Avarice and Lust has been erroneously attributed to her. The heads of the Slave and Laughing Man, which were signed by Rodin when they were cast in bronze, were actually molded by Camille.
So he's getting credit for her work because, one, their work is similar, like in style, but two, he's a dude.
Yep.
Cool.
So at one point, Camille actually started working in his workshop instead of in her own in 1884 and became a source of inspiration for him. She started acting as his model, his confidant, and eventually his lover.
You go, girl.
She never lived with him because he was reluctant to end his 20-year relationship with a woman named Rose Barrett.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry. He what?
Yep. Knowledge of the affair agitated Camille's family, especially her mother, who had already detested her for not being a boy.
Oh my God!
And never agreed with Camille's involvement in the arts.
How dare you not be a boy, but then act like you have the agency of a boy?
Yeah.
What?
As a consequence of this rift between her and her mother, Camille ended up leaving her family home.
Sad. But like, girl, honey, he's in a relationship with some lady for 20 years. Maybe, like, look elsewhere. Like, I'm not trying to blame her.
In 1892, Camille had an abortion, and afterwards she ended the intimate aspect of her relationship with Rodin, although they still saw each other quite regularly.
Right, they still maintained the emotional...
professional relationship.
Yep. Can you imagine getting an abortion back then?
I'm
surprised that's not where the story ends.
Yeah.
Like, she died, the end.
Lecornick and Pollock state that after the sculptor's physical relationship ended, because of gender-based censorship and the sexual element of Camille's work, she ended up not getting a lot of funding to get her daring ideas realized. So she started really struggling. Camille, unfortunately, then had to depend on Rodin to realize them because he was a man and had the funding, or she had to collaborate with him and let him get the lion's share of the credit.
So, I'm sorry. She breaks off this sexual relationship with this guy, and she stops getting as much work because she doesn't have as much of association with him?
It's more because her ideas were very daring.
They were too sexy.
Yep. There's a lot of sexual elements, and they were very daring. Like, a woman making naked statues was probably much more frowned upon than a man.
Yeah, because, like, the statue of David was, totally not a naked dude.
It forced her to kind of have to make, like it said, either she had to go to him and be like, hey, can you make this statue? That's my idea. Or be like, hey, can we collaborate on this?
And you get more money.
Put your name on it.
What the fuck? That is bullshit.
Yeah. She also ended up depending on him financially since her loving and wealthy father had died.
And her mom fucking hated her.
This allowed her mother and brother, who were suspicious of her lifestyle, to keep the money and let her wander around the streets dressed in beggar's clothing.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's really sad.
And then she's, like, kind of forced to maintain this relationship with the guy. Like, it sounds like they have a professional...
It's not intimate, but it's, like, it's almost like a dominating relationship at this point.
Yeah, because she is dependent on him. Before it was like an equal give and take. They were equals, but now it's she needs him just to keep living.
Yeah.
That sucks. That's toxic.
Camille's reputation did end up surviving, not because of her once notorious association with Rodin, but because her work started speaking for itself.
Good.
The novelist and art critic Octave Mirbeau described her as, quote, a revolt against nature, a woman genius, end quote.
I love that. A revolt against nature.
Right.
I found the first part of our episode title.
Right. While her early work is very similar to Rodin's in spirit, it shows an imagination and lyricism quite her own, particularly in the famous Bronze Waltz, which is a very beautiful piece. I'll put a picture of that up, too.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's like I think it's two figures dancing, and it's just very, very pretty.
So I realized I did Artemisia as my artist, and I didn't have any of her paintings up on my phone, and I wish I had, because you're describing these to me. I'm like, I really want to see them now. I'm having a hard time.
I should have put some on the blog, and I didn't. I'm sorry. I failed you. I'm just doing all the failings.
No one fails me twice. Shing!
Just breaking of a wine bottle over my head.
But no, there's still wine in it.
Oh, that's true.
We gotta empty it first.
Louis Vaucelles states that Camille was the only sculptress on whose forehead shone the sign of a genius like Berthe Morisot, the only well-known female painter of the century. So they're saying they had equal genius.
Right.
And that Camille's style was more virile than many of her male colleagues.
You go, Camille.
Others like Morhart and Carenfa concurred, saying that their styles had become so different, with Rodin being more suave and delicate, and Camille being vehement with vigorous contrast, which might have been one reason that led to their breakup, with her ultimately becoming his rival.
I love that his stuff, it sounds like it's a little more dainty and romantic, and she's like really edgy. Am I interpreting that right? Yeah. Okay. I love that she's getting edgy and like in your face, and he's like, no, like, let's make it all pretty. And she's like, bitch, life is hard. Get a helmet.
Right. Camille's onyx and bronze small statue called Le Vogue, which is called The Wave, which kind of gives you a sense of what it is, was a conscious break in her style from her Rodin period. It has a more decorative quality, quite different from the heroic feelings of her earlier work.
Love it. I love that's the cool thing about artists, is you can kind of almost map out the different events in their life based on how their art is influenced.
Have periods. Like if you think of like Picasso had his blue period, and so I think that's interesting.
When do you think your blue period ends? Because I feel like I've been stuck in that for a few years now.
After Rodin saw Camille's work named The Mature Age for the first time in 1899, he reacted with shock and anger. He suddenly and completely stopped supporting her. According to Arul Kloss, Rodin might have put pressure on the Ministry of Fine Arts to cancel the funding of the Braun Commission.
Fuck you, dude.
The Mature Age, which was released in 1900, is usually interpreted as an allegory of the 3 stages of life. There's a man who represents maturity, drawn into the hands of an old woman who represents old age and death, while a young woman who represents youth tries to save him. So basically on one side you have this woman like down on her knees like trying to hold this man back, and then there's the guy, and then there's this old woman like kind of welcoming him forward.
Okay, so it's like the tug of war between youth and death.
It's very beautiful.
That's cool. And he didn't like it?
No.
Suck it up, asshole.
Her brother interpreted it as an allegory of her breakup with Rodin.
Oh, because everything a woman does has to do with the men in her life.
Angelo Carenfa comments, quote, "The life that was, is, and will be in maturity contains within its movement both the relentless movement of Clotho and the rhythmic, graceful whirling of fortune, generating a single and subsisting movement or image out of the differences within." End quote.
That's lovely.
According to Carenfa, Clotho and Fortune, which were 2 different paintings, or sculptures actually, represent the 2 ideas of life. Life is Clotho, portrayed as closed, hopeless existence and consummated in an unending death. Life in Fortune is celebrated as the madness of eternal present with ups and downs, its rapture or total harmony.
I feel that. That, like, hit me right in the gut.
Right? So it is said by Arul Kloss that even though Rodin clearly signed some of her works and took credit for some of it, he was not treating her different because of her gender. Apparently it was typical for artists of this time to sign their apprentices' work.
It's like when the when you're trying to become a professor, or like you're a research assistant, but the other professor always puts their shit on their signature on your shit.
Others do criticize Rodin for not giving her the acknowledgement and support she did need, though. Yeah. And deserve.
True. Valid.
And Walker argues that most historians believe Rodin did what he could do to help her after her separation, and that her destruction of her own oeuvre, O-E-U-V-R-E, oeuvre, was partly responsible for the long-time neglect the art world had showed her. So this one historian is saying it wasn't Rodin, it was the art world in general.
To me, it kind of sounds like both, because he did good with her because he was supporting her and trying to, help her grow and everything.
And suddenly he was just like, no.
But then she outgrew him and he resented her for it. But then at the same time, the art world's not giving her enough credit because unless she's associated with him.
Yeah.
So she's getting it from both sides. It's not all on either of them. It's a multitude of issues.
Yeah, I agree.
Dumb.
Walker also says, so this is the same historian, says that what truly defeated Camille was, who was already recognized as a leading sculptor by many, were the sheer difficulties of the medium in the market. Sculpting was an expensive art, and she did not receive many official commissions because her style was highly unusual for the contemporary conservative tastes of the time.
Dumb.
However, despite this, other historians say that because she did this, she changed the history of the arts.
She was ahead of her time.
Exactly.
It's like no one could appreciate it at the time, but she changed the world.
Historians agree that it is unclear how much Rodin and Claudel or Camille influenced each other, because it's hard to know at this point.
Yep.
And it's hard to know how much credit was taken away from her and how much he was responsible for her woes. Most modern authors agree that she was an outstanding genius who, starting with wealth, beauty, iron will, and a brilliant future even before meeting Rodin, was never rewarded and died in loneliness, poverty, and obscurity.
What? That's how her story ends?
Yeah.
This is bullshit. Rewrite it.
Matthews and Fleming suggest that it was not Rodin, but her brother Paul who was jealous of her genius, and that he conspired with her mother, who never forgave her for her supposed immorality, to later ruin her and keep her confined to a mental hospital.
What?
Yeah.
Everyone is a dick!
Cavalier Adler notes that her younger sister Louise, who desired Camille's inheritance, was also jealous of her and was delighted in her sister's downfall.
Okay, so they're kind of arguing between who was really responsible for her downfall. It sounds like fucking everyone was. The dude she was dating screwed her over. The art world screwed her over. Her bitchy mother and shitty siblings screwed her over. What is going on?
I have one more paragraph and then we get into the whole mental institute part.
Okay, because I'm upset. I'm deeply upset right now.
This makes me sad. Less well known than her love affair with Rodin, the nature of her relationship with Claude Debussy, which I recognize that name. I think he must have been another famous artist at the time, has also been an object of a lot of speculation. Stephen Barr, a historian, reports that Debussy pursued her, but it is unknown whether they ever actually became lovers or not.
Okay. So he was into her, but we don't know if she reciprocated.
Yep. They both admired Degas and Hokusai and shared an interest in childhood and death themes.
Love it.
And when Camille ended their relationship, whatever that was, Debussy wrote, "I weep for the disappearance of the dream of this dream."
Oh, that's really sad.
Yeah, he admired her as a great artist and kept a copy of her sculpture, The Waltz, in his studio until his death.
Damn.
Unfortunately, by 30, Camille's romantic life had ended.
By 30 years old? What?
After 1905, Camille appeared to be mentally ill. She destroyed many of her statues, disappeared for long periods of times, and exhibited paranoia. She was diagnosed as having schizophrenia. She accused Rodin of stealing her ideas and leading a conspiracy to kill her.
Okay, what was schizophrenia in 1905 though? Because
yeah, exactly.
I've heard like schizophrenia was just, hey, you're unstable, you have schizophrenia. It's not like actual schizophrenia.
Right.
It was just like an umbrella diagnosis.
After the wedding of her brother in 1906 and his subsequent move back to China. So apparently he lived in China, came back, got married, and went back to China.
As one does.
Yeah. She lived secluded in her workshop by herself. While, as I said, her father approved of her career choice, apparently when he died, she wasn't informed.
Oh, shit!
Until 8 days later.
And I bet she'd, missed the funeral.
That's when her younger brother admitted to her to a psychiatric facility.
So her father dies, no one tells her, and then
he probably tells her and admits her to a psychiatric facility.
So, two things. Dad's dead, and you're going to live in a mental ward for the rest of your life. Sound good? Yeah, cool. You're a woman. You don't get a choice.
You say that, and you're kind of right, because it says the form read that she had been, air quotes, voluntarily committed.
Yeah, I call
although
bullshit.
Her admission was only signed by a doctor and her brother.
Yeah,
so she never signed her own admission.
That's fucking bullshit.
There are records to show that while she had some outbursts such as destroying her statues and stuff, she was clear-headed when she was working on her art.
Well, and the thing is, her life has kind of crumbled around her, and she's accusing Rodin of, like, conspiring against her and taking credit for her work. Well, it sounds like he fucking did.
Right. Doctors at the Institute tried to convince Paul and her mother that Camille did not need to be in an institution, but they still kept her there.
Are you serious?
Yeah. According to Cecile Bertrand, a curator from the Musée Camille Claudel, so she has her own museum. The situation was not easy to judge because modern experts who have looked at her records do say she was ill.
I mean...
But, again, like she said, it's hard to judge.
Well, and the thing is, you can have a mental illness and still be able to live on your own. But it sounds like there were a lot of people who fucking hated her, who took advantage of whatever existing, maybe it was like depression. I mean, Britney was allowed to have a bunch of outbursts.
Yeah, and she's still...
In like 2007, and no one institutionalized her. She shaved her fucking head. Like, come on. Women are allowed to get upset and freak out sometimes.
So in 1914, as the war, moved into France to be safe from advancing German troops, the patients at Ville-Évrard, were relocated, which is where she was. Camille was transferred with a number of other women to Montdevergis Asylum at Montfavat, 6 kilometers away from Avignon. Her certificate of admittance was signed September 22nd, 1914. It was reported that she suffered from, quote, a systemic persecution delirium, mostly based upon false interpretations and imaginations.
Okay.
End quote.
So they're saying she's imagining that people are out to get her?
Yeah.
Basically? Okay, well... I mean,
that she's being persecuted.
Is she wrong?
Right.
Can we just explore that for a moment?
Just a moment. Let's just touch base on that. Okay. So for a while, the press of the time accused her family of committing a sculptor of genius.
Okay, so other people are going, you're full of shit.
Yep.
You're terrible people.
Yep.
Good.
Her mother forbade her to receive any mail from anyone other than her brother. The hospital staff regularly proposed to her family that Camille be released, but her mother adamantly refused each time.
So this totally isn't voluntary.
Yeah. On June 1st, 1920, physician Dr. Brunet sent a letter advising her mother to try to reintegrate her daughter into the family environment, and nothing came of it.
Her mother is a goddamn monster.
Paul Claudel... You're going to get really sad.
Oh, no.
You might need more wine. Paul Claudel visited his confined older sister 7 times in the 30-year period she was confined.
Fuck you, Paul. You dumb piece of shit.
1913, 1920, 25, 27, 33, 36, and 43. He always referred to her in the past tense. Their younger sister, Louise, visited her 1 time. The mother never visited her.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even fucking surprised.
In 1929, Camille's former friend, Jessie Lipscomb, visited her and afterwards insisted, quote, it was not true, end quote, that Camille was insane.
Yeah, you think?
Rodin's friend Matthias Morhart, which is a great name, insisted that Paul was a simpleton who had shut away his sister of genius.
Okay, this is all well and good, but the fact that the hospital is like, okay, she's technically here voluntarily and she doesn't need to be, and they're not just fucking letting her out, they're like abiding by this psychotic mother's wishes. They are accessories to this bullshit.
Camille Claudel died on October 19th, 1943, after having lived 30 years in the asylum at Montfavat, which is actually still a modern psychiatric facility. Just interesting side note. Her brother Paul had been informed of his sister's terminal illness in September, and with some difficulty had crossed occupied France to see her, but he was not present at her death or funeral.
Fuck him. Fuck you, Paul.
When the sister found out, she did not make the journey at all.
This is awful.
Yep.
I hate all of this.
Yep. You're gonna hate this.
Oh
this
God.
Last sentence more.
No, that's fine. Just keep hitting me right in the gut, Kelley.
Camille was interred in the cemetery at Montfavat, and eventually her remains were buried in a communal grave at the asylum.
Another woman we don't know where she's buried.
from a 2002 book called Camille Claudel, A Life, says, quote, 10 years after her death, Camille's bones had been transferred to a communal grave where they were mixed with the bones of the most destitute. Joined forever to the ground she tried to escape for so long. Camille never ever returned to her beloved Villa Nueva. Paul's neglect regarding his sister's grave is hard to forgive. While Paul decided not to be burdened with his sister's grave, he took great pains, on the contrary, in choosing his own final resting place, naming the exact location in Bragnaw under a tree next to his grandchildren, and citing the precise words to be written on his tombstone. Today, his admirers pay homage to his memory at his noble grave, but of Camille there is not a trace. In Villanueva, a simple plaque reminds the curious visitor that Camille Claudel once lived there, but her remains are still in exile, somewhere, just a few steps away from the place where she was sequestered for 30 years.
I didn't know this was going to be a monster story.
Sorry.
Like, Paul is a goddamn monster. And, like, can we just accept culturally that's appropriate to piss on his grave? Because I think you and I need to go to France.
Yeah.
We need to go to the Lampe de Gouges Square, and we need to piss on Paul's grave, because what a son of a bitch.
And then go to where this mental asylum is and just, like,
cry
or something.
Pray and cry and leave flowers and
right
stick figures, because that's the only art I can produce.
Yeah, that's fine. Her legacy, because she does still have one.
Good.
The Musée Camille Claudel was opened in March 2017. It's as a French national museum dedicated to Camille's work. Aww. It is located in her teenage home of Nugent-sur-Seine, so we can add that to our French rotation, and displays approximately half of Claudel's 90 surviving works.
That's pretty impressive.
Yep, I know.
Thank God she has her own fucking museum. And then there's a picture, and it's framed, and no one can see what it is because it's just covered in spitballs, but underneath it's like her family.
Yeah.
Her mom and Paul and Louise. Fuck you guys.
So, like I said, she did destroy much of her work. And like I said above, there's only about 90 remaining statues, sketches, and drawings. In 1951, Paul Claudel did organize an exhibition at the Musée Rodin, because of course Rodin has his own museum too. But they actually continued to display her sculptures. So Paul did get them to do that, and they continue to do that to this day.
It's not good enough, though.
No.
Fuck you, Paul.
A large exhibition of her work was organized in 1984, which is nice. And in 2005, a large art display featuring the works of Rodin and Camille was exhibited in Quebec City, Canada.
Nice.
And Detroit, Michigan. In 2008, the Musée Rodin organized a retrospective exhibition, including more than 80 of her works, which if there's only 90 left, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I like how the museum that's dedicated to him is acknowledging her place in his life and his work.
Yeah, I know. I really like that too. The publication of several biographies in the 1980s sparked a resurgence of interest in her. I don't know if it's a play. I think it must be a play called Camille Claudel. It was in 1988, and it was a dramatization of her life based largely on historical records.
And it was
actually, it must have been a movie, because it says directed by Bruno Nueten, co-produced by Isabelle Adjani, starring herself as Camille and Gerard Depardieu as Rodin. The film was nominated for 2 Academy Awards in 1989, and another film also called Camille Claudel premiered at the 63rd Berlin International Film Festival.
One, I'm glad I'm not the only one who's been saying Camille instead of Camille. It's hard. But 2, like, I can't believe those movies came out so recently, because those were, the 80s?
Yeah. And there's one in 2017 as well, which I was about to
What?
say. They're all French movies.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because Americans have no taste.
Composer Jeremy Beck's work Death of a Little Girl with Doves is an operatic soliloquy for soprano and orchestra based on the life and letters of Camille Claudel. This composition has been recorded by Ryan Dupuis, soprano, with the Slavic Radio Symphony Orchestra. His composition has been described as a deeply attractive and touching piece of writing, demonstrating imperious melodic confidence, fluent emotion command, and yielding tenderness.
I love all of these works of art that are dedicated to her, but I feel like I couldn't enjoy any of them because they'd just be so depressing that I wouldn't get out of bed for a week.
Right. Her work has sold very well. They sold a second edition, La Valse, for $932,500 in 2005.
Wow.
In 2006, they sold Les Dieux and Volets, which was signed and numbered 6 out of 8, for $180,000, while a comparable Rodin sculpture has a high estimate of only $75,000.
I'm not saying it's about size or anything, but I think we all know who won.
In 2011, there was a world premiere of Boris Eifman's ballet Rodin. It took place in St. Petersburg, and the ballet was dedicated to the life and creative work of Auguste Rodin and his apprentice lover and muse, Camille Claudel.
I'm glad she's in there.
Yeah. So that was her sad life.
You know, as difficult as it was to listen to all that, because it was just like
Especially at the end. It was just like boom, boom, boom.
It got worse and worse, and it didn't stop. It's like just when you think this can't get worse, it
got
does.
worse, yeah.
But I feel like that's why it's almost even, it's just as important to learn about her, because she was victimized for being different, for being
inventive and new.
Yeah, for doing something that other people weren't doing, and being a woman doing it. Because if a guy was doing that, they call him an innovator.
Rodin ended up doing some of her sculptures, and he did just fine.
Yeah, so you can't tell me that she wasn't victimized for being a woman. And then her family is fucking psychotic. Right. That was just awful, and the fact she could never get away from them. God. Well, I think Camille needs an extra cheers. Cheers, Camille. Clink.
All right, darling.
All right.
Who are you covering?
Thank God I'm not covering a terribly depressing story.
Good. Usually it's you that does the terribly depressing stories.
It is, and I don't know why. I'm just so sad inside.
You just want to make everyone hurt like you do.
Yes. Feel my pain. If I share my pain, maybe it'll leave me a little bit. Okay. So, I am covering, drum roll, The Night Witches.
Oh. That actually sounds really cool.
No, I'm so excited to cover this, because I didn't have a woman lined up for this week. And so I started Googling, and then What, Emily? Unprepared? I've never.
Ever.
But I stumbled upon like a list of cool women, and these ladies popped up. I was like, oh shit, I've heard of them. Why didn't they come up like in my head immediately?
I haven't heard of them, so let's get into this.
I was going to say, buckle up. So today I'm covering the Night Witches. Strap in and strap on. I'm covering the Night Witches, the 588th Night Bomber Regiment.
Ooh.
Yes.
Active. The military.
Yes, active from 1942 to 1945. World War II, Shit's gonna get cray. When World War II broke out, many Soviet women volunteered to serve, and as we've talked about before, women were not welcome with open arms into the military. While the Soviet Union didn't have any formal bans on women serving, their applications often became trapped in red tape in an attempt to deter them from pursuing service. Oh, we lost your application. Oh, it's still being filed.
Oh, we never got it.
Yeah. Can you resend it? Yeah, it was just fucking dumb. However, when the Nazis invaded Russia in 1941, the Soviet Union realized they needed people and fast.
That's when the fighting girlfriend came in, wasn't it?
I actually was talking about the Night Witches with my coworker today, and he's like, oh, you should cover, she was a Russian soldier and she had a tank. And I was like, the fighting girlfriend, Maria? Yeah. Like, I was like,
did that.
Been there, done that. We got it.
Maria Oktyabrskaya or something?
Oktyabrskaya.
Man.
It's really hard. If I don't have it in front of me.
Or Maria.
I thought, was it Maria or Maria?
Maria. It was Maria.
Okay.
I know. I did her.
It's whatever we said in that episode.
All right, continue.
Okay. Enter Marina Raskova. A little about our gal Marina. She was a famous pilot and navigator in the 1930s and was the first woman to become a navigator for the Soviet Air Force in 1933. She was also the first woman to teach at the Zhukovsky Air Force Academy.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, she's breaking barriers by herself. She's got this. Marina became something of a celebrity in the Soviet Union, setting a whole bunch of long-distance flight records. And they call her the Russian Amelia Earhart, which gives you an idea of how big of a deal she was. Yeah. But at the same time, why can't she just be Marina?
Yeah, right.
And
like
Amelia can just be Amelia. Like, I get it helps our American-centric ears to, like, dumb. Figure it out. But so long story short, she's a badass. When World War II came to the Soviet Union, Marina used her status and connections with Joseph Stalin to convince the military to create 3 combat regiments for women. To do this, she gave a speech on October 8th, 1941, demanding that women be allowed to join the military as pilots, support staff, and engineers.
Wow.
Later the same day, Stalin created the all-female 122nd Aviation Corps.
Yay.
Same fucking day.
Yeah, he's like, oh shit, I better do this.
No government moves this fucking quick. But just quick reminder, Stalin is still a son of a bitch. He's not a hero here, and I'm not trying to make him one.
No.
But he did a thing. The corps were made up of 3 regiments with 400 women each, and that's 1,200 women out of over 2,000 applicants. So that just shows how many women wanted to be a part of the military and help.
Like, no, I want to fight. Like, that's my husband and son out there. I want to help too.
Yeah, I've never, like, I understand if you're a criminal or you're not stable, you shouldn't join the military. But, like, I've never understood these weird bans on who can and can't join the military. I'm like, don't you need as many people as possible? Don't you want as many people who are, like, feeling patriotic and enough willing to serve?
Yeah.
Yeah. I could never serve in the military. I don't have that calling. I have so much respect for people who do. That's just not who I am. I probably could. So why are you telling someone...
I have other things that disqualify me, but
well,
yeah.
Why are you telling someone who's willing and able... No, because reasons.
Because you're a woman. Because you have ovaries, Emily.
Because you're transgender. Like, I'm so
dumb.
fucking sick of it.
It's dumb.
You're black. Like, anyway, I'm sorry.
Tangent.
So the corps were made up of 3 regiments. The first was the 586th Fighter Aviation Regiment, which was the first to take part in battle. They would destroy 30 enemy aircraft in 125 air battles.
Wow, that's
Boom.
Awesome.
The next was the 587th Bomb Aviation Regiment, which Marina commanded until her death in a service-related plane crash in 1943.
Oh.
She was the first service member to receive a state funeral during the war.
Wow.
Men, women, everything in between. She was the first.
Wow. I thought it was just going to be first woman, but she was just the first?
Yeah. Wow. So of the war, she was the first one to receive a state funeral, which is a big deal.
Yeah. Because usually it's just like, well, bury them on the battlefield. We have to keep going.
Right. Well, and then especially, like, she was a bit of a celebrity already, but, you know, just being a woman, I'm like, no one cares.
That's awesome.
And then finally, the 588th Night Bomber Aviation Regiment, also known as the Night Witches. I love saying that.
I know, it just like kind of gives you chills.
The 588th is arguably the most famous of the 3 regiments, and you're about to find out why. The Night Witches, dubbed so by the Nazis they bombed the fuck out of, were comprised of mostly women in their teens and early 20s. They flew tiny plywood biplanes called Polikarpov U-2s that didn't have radar, radio, and weren't even intended for combat. So these are made of plywood and canvas. They're outdated. They're not even meant for combat. And they're like...
It's probably why they're flying them at night. Like, well,
yeah.
You know, it's harder to spot them kind of a thing.
Hey, go fly this. And it, by the way...
Go fly this and bomb people.
It has no technology. Nothing. To compensate for the lack of technology, the pilots were equipped with rulers, stopwatches, flashlights, pencils, maps, and compasses. I'm just
so
like,
high tech.
You're flying.
You're flying a plane. Hold on, let me measure this distance on my map.
Do you have your ruler? Just let me grab it. Oh, what do you do with a ruler? Like, I guess you maybe use it on the map?
Yeah, you'd use it on the map to try and calculate distances and yeah.
I can't imagine working like that. So you're flying at night during World War II. Here's a paper map and a ruler and a compass and just have at it. Have at it. Little did anyone know these young women clad in secondhand men's uniforms would become the most highly decorated female unit of the Soviet Air Force. So how did they do it? I know you're dying to know. Let's take a look at the average night in the life of a night witch. The pilots would leave in their Polycarpovs carrying 2 bombs each, one under each wing. While the planes were slow and shitty, they were fast and maneuverable in the hands of these daring pilots. The women, armed with their rudimentary tools, would fly to the target. As they approached, they would idle their engines and glide the rest of the way. The lack of sound combined with the cover of night allowed them to sneak up on the enemy. The only warning the Nazis had was a light whooshing sound, which they likened to the sound of broomsticks, thus the name Night Witches.
I love it. Yeah, that's great.
After their mission was complete, the pilots would fly back to their base, reload, and head out again, often flying between 8 and 18 missions per night.
Yeah, I suppose just depending on the distance they had to go.
Yep.
That's insane.
The Night Witches were so deadly that any Nazi who could shoot down one of their planes was automatically awarded the Iron Cross Medal, which was a very prestigious award in Nazi Germany and a super hate symbol now. The Nazis actually thought the women were master criminals who were sent to the front lines as punishment, or super soldiers who could see at night as the result of, like, super soldier injections.
Yeah, because I'm sure they shot one down and was like, the fuck, she has no equipment.
Right.
How are they possibly doing this?
Well, and the fact that they're just coming out of nowhere and just so devastating. And how is this happening? Let's remember, these women are in their teens and early 20s with minimal training, and the Nazis are pissing themselves. And it's so beautiful. While the planes were difficult to shoot down, that doesn't mean it never happened. One ace Nazi pilot, whose name I intentionally left out because fuck you, managed to shoot down 4 planes in one night, grounding the entire regiment for the first time.
Well, yeah, I'm sure, because they're like, if he's out there and he's already down 4 of our planes, like, we're not going to put the rest of them at risk.
Exactly. It's like, we need to cut our losses. Yep. This is not okay. And then each plane was piloted by 2 people. There was the pilot and the navigator, so that's 8 women.
That's what I figured.
Gone.
I was like, so we're talking about, like, trying to fly a plane and navigate. I'm like, but I'm sure there was a second person.
You fly with one hand, you check the map with the other, and then you do your makeup with your toes. You just, you get real flexible.
And have to cut the bomb off the wing.
Their planes were highly flammable, and the pilots weren't given parachutes until 1944 because they couldn't afford the extra weight. Yep. These planes were so shitty. So being shot by even one tracer bullet could be devastating. Like, that was it. You're done. The Night Witches abided by 12 commandments, and I'm super pissed that I couldn't find all 12. But the first was, be proud, you are a woman.
Fuck yeah!
And now, I left the 12 commandments part in there because it was really interesting, but I only found it in one article, and I Googled, like, 12 commandments of the Night Witches, and the only other thing I found was someone else asking, what are the other 11? And there was no answer.
Yeah.
But Herstory headcanon here.
There was at least one.
Be proud you're a woman. So what did these deadly pilots do in their spare time? They would do needlework, patchwork, decorate their planes, and
it's probably normal women shit.
And use their navigation pencils as eyeliner.
Fuck yeah.
Who says you can't fight Nazis and look fucking fabulous? The Night Witch's last flight was on May 4th, 1945.
So, like, didn't even get parachutes for, like, a year.
Yeah.
God.
Hey, you know what? Most of you guys are still around. You're proving to be valuable. We'll give you some parachutes.
Right.
And then, like, the war ended the next day.
Yeah.
They flew within 37 miles of Berlin, and 3 days later, Nazi Germany officially surrendered.
They're like, oh shit, they're coming. They're coming.
I know it wasn't just the Night Witches that caused the Nazis to surrender, but we can't deny that they were a formidable force which struck fear into their enemies.
Heck yeah.
And also, I like to think Hitler, like, peed himself a little.
A little.
Shit.
So why do you think he was hiding in a bunker? He's like, they can't get me down here.
They can't get me underground. By the end of the war, they had lost a total of 30 pilots. As I
30 pilots or just 30 people?
Well, pilots. So I think that's people.
Okay. Because you were saying there's 2 per plane, so I was like, are we talking just pilots and they're just not counting the navigators?
No, I think it's just they lost 30
Yeah,
30
maybe everyone
service
was
members.
trained as a pilot and they just rotated roles.
Yeah. As I mentioned, Marina Raskova, who had created the Night Witches, didn't live to see the end of the war. Despite their ability to excel with limited supplies, outdated equipment, and minimal training, 6 months after the end of the war, the Night Witches were disbanded and excluded from the Victory Day parade in Moscow.
Wow.
Allegedly,
somebody go punch Stalin in the face.
The
grave in the face.
If you didn't already have a reason to punch that mofo in the face,
right.
here
More
it is.
punches.
Just an extra punch. This was allegedly because their planes were too slow, but let's get real here. We all know.
Right, like, put that thing on a fucking trailer and just let them stand next to it.
Right? Like, were they actually, like, flying in the parade? I don't know what the parade looked like, but I'm like,
right.
What, you mean there was no one on the ground marching? Like,
right?
Fuck you guys. So whether they were fighting Nazis in the air or sexual harassment and general discrimination on the ground, the Night Witches were a crucial part of defeating the Nazis in World War II and are certifiable badass babes.
Fuck yeah.
And then I've also got some fierce factoids about the 588th. 30,000 plus combat missions. They flew 30,000 plus combat missions by the end of the war. That's over 800 per pilot.
That's insane.
Boom. Well, I mean, they're going like 18 times a fucking night.
And see, that's the other reason I was wondering if maybe everyone was trained as a pilot, because maybe they would come back, switch roles, go out again.
Yeah, and when they say pilot, I think they're just referring to one of the women.
Yeah,
one of the service members. They dropped 23,000 tons of bombs on the Nazis. They produced 24 Heroes of the Soviet Union, which was the highest distinction of the Soviet Union. Yep. Now it's known as the Hero of the Russian Federation.
Yep.
And they've got stamps! Woo! Marina has 2 Herstory stamps, because there's one that was produced by the Soviet Union.
Yep.
And then she's just got like a more modern day stamp that looks like the ones that we've seen.
Okay.
And we'll
like
put those up
the
on
Russian
the blogs.
Federation did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there are also 2 more stamps, one for each of the leaders of the other 2 regiments.
Aww.
I couldn't find their names though. And I was like, oh, I'll dig deeper later. And then we got started late recording, so I didn't have a chance.
Give up and let's go.
Yes. So yeah, those are the Night Witches.
That's bad. I want to be a Night Witch.
I want to get a jean jacket that just says Night Witch on the back.
Right.
And has like a little bomb.
Yeah, I would wear that.
I would wear the hell out of that.
That should be a Netflix series. Like, they had like the bomb makers or whatever it was called, the bomb gals or girls, whatever.
Oh.
They should make a series about the Night Witches.
They fucking absolutely should.
I would love that. I would watch the shit out of that.
But the whole time I was doing this, I was thinking of Maria.
Yeah.
Our fighting girlfriend, so.
She's badass too. And
actually, I found a story. I didn't cover her, but there was a woman who had a almost identical backstory to Maria.
Yeah.
Like, husband was killed. She joined the military to fight in World War II. But she became a sniper.
I was going to say, was it the sniper? Because I read about her too.
Yep. And I thought about covering her, and I was like, there needs to just be a little more space. Because, I mean, it was almost like beat by beat.
Yeah.
But that's super sad, because that almost shows how, like, prevalent that situation was.
I'm sure some of the people in the women's corps, all 3 of them, were similar situations too.
Oh, hell yeah. So, we're ending on a positive note.
That's much better. Let's end on that.
Yeah. So, I still think we need to share what we're thankful for this week.
Okay, you can go first.
Okay, I'm thankful for 2 things. You may have heard me a few weeks ago say I was really thankful I didn't hit a dog. I don't know if I told that story. Mm-mm. Oh, shit, did I not? Mm-mm. I told you that story. Okay, so a few weeks ago, I was driving to work and a dog ran out in front of my car, paused, and then ran back to where he came from before I could, like, do anything about it, but I didn't hit him. It was close, but I was driving very carefully and saw him. Well, today, I almost hit a baby duck. So I thought it was a fucking leaf, and so I'm getting closer, and I'm like, oh shit, and I swerved, like, really aggressively, I'm looking at my rear view, and I see it waddling away. I was like, thank you, Jesus. Because No, I'm so terrified of hitting animals because I like can't handle it emotionally.
I know, it's always really nice. My husband, like, even if it's like a fucking squirrel, he will stop for them because he knows I don't think I can handle it.
Every time.
And then I yell at the animal, like, because sometimes I've had birds like fly in front of the grill of my car and I'm like, the fuck are you doing?
Yes, I've had so many near misses, but like this part of the street, I've seen like ducks with their babies crossing, and I'm like, just honey, get out of the fucking road. You're stressing me out. And so I'll stop. I'll like flash my lights and put on my hazards because I don't want anyone else to run them over. Second thing I'm thankful for, when we started, my battery on my laptop was at 3%. I called my boyfriend and he brought over my charger like a goddamn hero.
Good job, Jared.
We love you, Jared. Thank you. Polite golf claps.
What am I thankful for? I just got a reminder or not a reminder, I got a text asking if we're almost done.
We are almost done.
Maybe I'm not thankful for that.
Carl, are you listening? We're almost fucking done.
I know.
Puppies, we're almost fucking done.
I think I'm actually going to go with, I'm really grateful for working with the wonderful women I work for, and especially my boss. She's just so understanding. It was a really busy week this week, and I had to ask my boss this morning if I could reschedule a meeting with her, and she just was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, no big deal. You do you. And I was like, thank you. Like, I just need to, like, organize my shit.
That's awesome. Well, and I think you're like this, but I'm very like, if my boss says something, I need to do it. I need to do it perfectly.
And so, like, asking if I could, like, and I even said, like, in the email, I'm like, if you can't do it a different time, I can totally, like, fit it in.
Yeah, like, I'll make it work, but, like, maybe if you could, if that's okay. So that kind of support and that acknowledgement is so great that you have that relationship.
Just like my coworkers that, you know, a few of us went on walks today, and
nice.
It's just nice. It's a good environment. We can, like, joke around and stuff. So I'm thankful for them.
I'm really happy to hear that. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Please hit us up on Instagram at WAHpod. Email us at whiningaboutherstory@gmail.com. We want to hear about the women you want us to cover and the women in your life. We'll give them a shout out. Say their name.
Heck yeah. Also find us on Facebook, Whining About Herstory. You know, give us a comment, a review maybe.
Like and follow us for all the fun stuff.
Please. And go ahead and visit our website, whiningaboutherstory.com. We post a little synopsis. Okay, they're not that little, but a shortened version of what we talk about here on the blog. And then I'm also currently going through an art installation called The Dinner Party about women. And part 2 of that will be up by the time this launches. And part 3 will be coming on the Thursday of the week this launches.
Kelley, I'm thankful for all the work you put into that blog.
And I'm thankful for you on our social media because I tend to forget about it.
That's okay.
I'll do better.
I like scrolling around on social media and then pretending I'm being productive. No, this is for the
I
podcast.
do that sometimes where I'll like get on our Instagram and like go through who we're following and comment and stuff and like try to be interactive, but I'm not good about like putting content out there.
Also on Instagram, check out our wine highlights. We always post what we're drinking the night of. So if you want to drink with us, you can check out what we're drinking for the next episode ahead of time.
And I believe you post them on Wednesdays as well, don't you? Wine Wednesdays?
So I celebrate Wine Wednesdays, but I post about the wine we just drank.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you want to wait for our episodes that come out on Monday until Wednesday, you can drink with us then too.
Just drink.
Just drink.
Just keep drinking. Well, thank you so much for listening. I'm Emily.
I'm Kelley.
And have an empowered day.
Bye.